Hi, and welcome to the second of two videos for solving linear equations. In the first video, we looked at a handful of examples, and they all had what? They all had one solution. X equals 3, x equals 7, y equals 1/5. But that isn't always going to be the case. We could have a situation where we have no solutions, or we have infinite solutions. So let's take a look at what that might look like. Let's say we have the problem 2 times x plus 1 minus 2 times x minus 1 is equal to 0. And in this case, we want to solve for x. So when we have this problem, we're going to approach it the same. We want to simplify, if you remember our rules, simplify the left and right side. So we'll distribute the 2, we get 2x plus 2. And now be careful here. We have a negative 2, so be careful when we distribute the negative sign. So negative 2 times x is minus 2x. Negative 2 times negative 1 is plus 2. All equals 0. Nothing to simplify on the right side. So now on the left, what happens? Well, this 2x cancels with that one. So we're left with 2 plus 2 is 4 equals 0. Well, wait a minute. 4 is not equal to 0. So because this is false, we get to a problem where we can't go any further, but we have a false statement. This implies no solution. So I cannot pick any value of x that if I plug it into the original is going to give me a true statement. So that's our situation of no solution. Let's look at another example. Again, we want to solve for x. And we have 3 times x plus 1 is equal to 2 times x plus 2 plus x. So here again, let's simplify both sides. Distribute the 3. We get 3x plus 3 plus 1. On the left, don't forget this one here. And don't forget the x on the outside. And here we get what? 2x plus 4 plus x. So now, again, simplify, combine our like terms. So on the left, we get 3x plus 4. And here, 2x plus 1x is 3x plus 4. Well, wait a minute. This is the same thing on both sides. Let's assume that at this point you didn't recognize that it was the same thing, and you went along in the process, and it's like, all right, let me get rid of the variable. So I need to subtract 3x from both sides. Well, wait a minute. That canceled out. So I get 4 on the left, and that canceled out, and I got 4 on the right. So in the first example, we had what? 4 is equal to 0. That's false. Therefore, no solution. In this case, we end up with 4 equals 4, which is true. So we get to a point where we get a true statement. One side is equal to the other. This implies an infinite number of solutions. Namely, if I pick any value for x, 0, 10, negative 30, whatever I pick, plug it into the original problem, I'm going to get an answer at the end of 4 equals 4. That's true. So I can pick any value that I want for x, and I will still end up with both sides of the equation being true. So that's the potential options we have. When we're solving linear equations, we can have one solution, like we had before. We can have no solution, or we can have infinite number of solutions. Now, the last type of problem I want to look at here is linear equations with fractions. So we had an example earlier where our answer was a fraction, but what about if we start with fractions? How can we handle something like that? So let's look at this example. Let's say we want to solve for x, and I have 2/5 x, or 2/5 times x, minus a half is equal to 3. So, first off, is this a linear equation? Am I solving a linear equation as these videos have been talking about? Well, what are our rules? Rule number 1, the exponent on the variable can only be 1. Well, that's fine, it is. Its variable is 1. Rule number 2, no roots. Well, I don't have a square root or anything like that, so that's okay. And rule number 3, variables can't be multiplied by each other. Well, I only have one variable. So even though this looks really messy with all the fractions, this is in fact a linear equation. All right, so how am I going to solve this thing? Well, we have two options. The first one is like the famous marketing thing, just do it. If you're good with fractions, then just go ahead and work with fractions. What do? We add a half to both sides. Then we divide by the coefficient. And because it's a fraction, it means we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. That's fine. You are more than welcome to do that. It's just you have a lot of fraction math, and for most people I know that's very intimidating. So this way we don't have to, the second way I'm going to show you, you don't have to do that. And the second way is what? We're going to call it the LCD method. So if you remember before when we were combining fractions, we had to do what? Find the common denominator, LCD's least common denominator. So that's what I'm going to do here, and when I find that value, I'm going to multiply the entire equation by it. Well, is that okay? Well, let's look. If I have 2 is equal to 2, well, that's true. Well, what if I multiply the entire thing by 5? So I multiply everything on the left by 5, I multiply everything on the right by 5. What do I get? 10 is equal to 10. That's true as well. So as long as I multiply the entire equation by some number, then that's all right. That's what I'm going to do here. So let me rewrite this as 2/5 x minus 1/2 equals 3 over 1. So when I have this, what is my least common denominator? And if you remember from before, to find it in this case, our LCD, our least common denominator, is going to be 10. So what I'm going to do is multiply every single term here by 10 over 1. This guy by 10 over 1. This guy by 10 over 1. And if I have done this correctly, all of the fractions should disappear. And then I don't have to deal with fractions anymore until maybe the very last step. So here, the 5 in the denominator cancels with the 10, leaves me with 2 and 1 in the denominator. So I have what? 2 times 2 is 4 times x, so 4x. Minus, here the 2 cancels with the 10, I get 5, 1 in the denominator again. Fraction math is what? Multiply numerators, multiply denominators. So 5 times 1 is 5, 1 times 1 is 1. And lastly, multiply everything across. 3 times 10 is 30 over 1. 30 over 1 is 30. So there we go. We got rid of the fractions. We don't have to deal with them anymore. Now I can solve this just like I've been solving these equations all day. So what do? We're going to add 5 to both sides. So we get 4x is equal to 35. As the last step says, go ahead and divide by the coefficient. So divide everything by 4. Tells me that x is equal to 35 over 4. So our answer ends up a fraction, but we didn't have to deal with fractions throughout the entire problem. So that's it. That's your lesson on solving linear equations. We looked at one solution, we looked at no solution, we looked at infinite solution, and we looked at linear equations with fractions and how we can deal with that. So you guys write down your questions, try the homework, make sure you complete the pre-quiz before class. When you guys come to class, any questions you have on the homework, then you can ask me then. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next set of videos.